Okay, here we go. Back again, episode number 67 of the Coffee with Joffrey podcast. And my guest today is Liam Carmichael. Liam, how are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you.
Liam, so good to get you on. Obviously you were in Dubai before. When you left Dubai, I said to you on the week that you were leaving, right, as soon as you settled over wherever you're going, you are on the podcast. So tell me, how is everything? How's life with you?
Life's good, man. So moved to Hong Kong. That's been about 6 months ago. So I would say I'm fully settled in now. It's been a great experience learning at the gym that I'm currently at and just living in a different culture. Hong Kong's very different to Dubai. It's got some similarities, but in a whole, it's Southeast Asia or Asia compared to the Middle East. It's always going to be different, right? So enjoying it, having some fun, yeah.
Nice, man. And Liam, just for the listeners, just give a little bit of a background. Obviously, you were working in Dubai before, you were at Sands, maybe just a little bit of a background of what you were doing before and kind of where you're at now.
Cool, man. Well, this could be a podcast on its own, but I'll try and keep it as brief as possible. So just a bit of background on myself. Also, I'm from Scotland, probably tell by the accent. When I was 15, I moved to France, spent 5 years there, then went back to the UK for a year and a half, decided couldn't hack it, weather was terrible. I then got myself a job in Dubai where I spent about 5.5 years. 3 of those years was working for Emirates, or 4.5 was working for Emirates. And then about a year I transitioned into coaching full time. So yeah, that then led to me getting a job somehow in Hong Kong. And here I am sitting in Hong Kong talking to you. So it's been a bit of a crazy couple of years, but still smiling, still happy, and yeah, enjoying it.
Yeah, that's great. And listen, what I love about your kind of story and your experiences is that you probably came into the fitness industry at a later stage compared to maybe others. I know that there's people even later than you that come into it.
Mm-hmm.
But your experience in terms of your own training and your own development has very much fed into the way that you coach and the way that you deal with your clients these days. And this podcast episode is training with intent, and you put tons of stuff out on your social media. And I know from when I was training with you before, training is so much more than just going into the gym and doing exercise for 1 hour, random exercise and leaving. And that's why I wanted to get your thoughts on that, because I think the listeners will find it super useful. How you deal with your day-to-day clients, how you deal with your own training, and kind of like your methodology around that. So how does it kind of begin for you? Let's give an example of, a new client coming into you, maybe someone who's unconditioned, hasn't been training in the gym for a long time, has a goal of maybe wanting to shift some unwanted body weight. What does that process look like?
Well, I think it always starts with just a conversation, right? I think no matter where the person wants to go, we've got to sit down, and we call it an initial consultation. And that initial consultation is just relationship building, right? We ask some deep questions, we figure out some priorities, some values, and like maybe that the goal is to shift some weight, but why does the person want to shift some weight? Because I would say 90% of the population wants to shift the weight, but if we don't understand, if we don't start to create these deeper intentions to why we want to lose the weight, then the road becomes very unclear, and it becomes a quite like a short road because the person's not invested, is not bought in. But instead, if we've cultivated these intentions, it's easy for the coach. The coach now knows what we're doing. It's easy to then start prescribing exercises. And if the person understands the why to what they're doing, then they're bought in, right? Because let's face it, sometimes like when we're just starting out with exercise or trying to create new behaviors, it's challenging, right? Like if you've not been exercising for 3 years and you've got some coach now telling you need to walk 10,000 steps a day and you need to eat this sort of things, and it become quite overwhelming. But instead, if we've created those intentions and that person understands why they're walking 10,000 steps a day, then it just creates a lot more buy-in.
I love that. And what you said there about starting with a conversation, because, being in the fitness industry, almost every day you'll have someone inquiring, whether it's through social media, through referrals, through other streams, people inquiring about, hey, personal training, getting fitter, getting healthier. And it's almost that prerequisite into getting someone into training. Hey, are they able to sit down and have a conversation with you and get a little bit uncomfortable? I almost feel like that's a skill of a coach and a personal trainer. And for the listeners, you might have been in this position before. If you simply, hiring your PT off just finding off the prices off commenting or messaging them on Facebook and not having a conversation before signing up, It's almost a prerequisite. Are you able to have those difficult conversations? And as a coach, are you able to ask those questions? And instead of following it up with another question, are you able to just have that almost like awkward pause in between that silence for them to be able to think about it and really grasp what it is, what they're trying to do?
Yeah. And I think also that comes like some conversations, you'll meet different people. It's very individual dependent, right? Some people will come in and they'll just open everything up to you, right? You've been in that situation before. And then you get the other people where maybe in that initial consultation, you've still not got the real information that you're looking for, but that's okay. The relationship's not a 2-week relationship, a 3-week. We're talking about a couple of years of probably this relationship where people are going to start opening up. And that's the difference right there. And it just starts with that conversation. And that conversation can lead to maybe that person's not a good fit for the coach. Like, and I remember when I was like, obviously I'm still quite a young coach, but when you're just starting, like you're keen to take everybody on, right? Because it's like, I'm looking for that money, whatever it's going to be. And you're just, I'll take everybody. But unfortunately, you can't help everybody. And not everybody's going to work. It's going to be a good fit for yourself, right? And I think that's very person dependent and also from the coach as well, right?
Yeah, great. So let's move it forward then in that journey. What obviously the natural thing would be, and what tends to happen is someone wants to get fitter, right? Gym 4 or 5 days a week, right? Let's see where that takes me. What other considerations need to be almost taken before they reach that stage? I'm not saying that people can't go and get started on an exercise regime, but what are the other considerations that need to be, thought about?
Well, I think just starting with that conversation, so that initial consultation, what's happening there, you're digging into all facets of their lives, lifestyle, nutrition, sleep, and we're starting to paint this picture, right? We call it the stress bucket. And you're starting to understand with all these questions, the person's only sleeping 4 hours a night, they're only eating 1,200 calories a day, they're not drinking enough water, and they're coming to you and they want to lose weight and they want to work out 5 days a week. It's probably not going to work and you're probably actually going to do more harm than good. That person, unfortunately, and that's that hard conversation, and that can be difficult for a coach to say. And it can also be difficult for a client to take that on board, that you need to sort out all these other factors in your life. And it's not like you have to sort out everything before you exercising, but maybe just start with a walk, right? Show me you can walk twice a week and you can sleep 7 hours a night and you can drink 2.5 liters of water. Once you're at that stage, then you can actually start going into the gym and expressing fitness, because we've always got to go back to that stress recover adaptation. Like, again, talking about that stress bucket, if your bucket is full of stress, and exercise is another stressor, right? But your body that only perceives stress as stress, whether it's exercise or something from the environment, for your body is stress. So if your bucket's already nearly filled and you want to fill it with more stress, i.e. exercise, you're not going to see the adaptation that you want. I mean, I'm sure you've seen it yourself. People working out twice a day, 5 days a week, and they're not seeing the results they want. Why? Because the recovery is so bad, they can't actually get the right recovery to see the right adaptations.
Yeah, I think, definitely something that I've seen. And I think a lot of it comes down to, yes, getting your steps up has more recognition now. 10,000 steps on a Fitbit is a great target, but more steps is generally like such a great way of increasing your fitness level, getting your steps up, increasing your non-exercise activity, which isn't going to add that stress onto your body. When you're going into the gym and you're doing, whether it's a tough strength training session, a CrossFit session, a high intensity session, you go for a long run, like you've just talked about the stress bucket there, you are literally adding stress onto that. Is this the right environment for us to be adding that extra stress, or does it actually need to be a little bit more simplistic? And I guess that's where the bigger picture comes into it. And you as a coach, knowing that bigger picture and the longer term goals are important.
And I think sometimes they can be hard conversations to have with clients, right? That's a hard conversation to tell them, right? Well, actually, I think you should just be walking right now. But the whole world around them, the whole Instagram, social media is telling them that they need to do a HIIT class, or they need to go and lift the 5 reps on a heavy back squat. That's what everybody's telling them. And then you've got this coach in front of them telling them, well, actually, you should just be walking 10,000 steps. There's some resistance there, right? But I think, like, you hit the nail on the head. It's just trying to think of that bigger picture.
I think, and I don't know whether you agree with this, one of the problems is listen, every coach has got their own style of training, their own ways of doing things, but there's majority, there's a lot of coaches out there who are looking, they might not admit it, but they're looking for quick fixes, quick wins with their clients to be able to market to new clients as well. So as a coach, you would agree with this. It would be, if someone came to you and they wanted to lose weight, it would be easy for them to be able to do that. But you're not looking at the bigger picture. You could drastically cut their calories, tell them not to eat carbohydrates, and then they could, blast loads of exercise. But that longer term picture, they're going to end up worse off than where they were when they started working with you.
Mm-hmm. And I think it just goes back to like behaviors, right? I mean, that's why challenges do so well, because it's like these, like you get like a 30-day challenge. You can be motivated for 30 days, right? You can cut your calories, you can do all the things, but if you're not essentially changing your behavior or your relationship with food, once that 30 days is up, because we all know the story, the person loses 4 kgs on the 30-day challenge, right? Great. But essentially the person's just been held, like they've got that motivation for 30 days, they've held on, day 31 comes, challenge finishes, and they go right back to their old behaviors because they've not changed any of their behaviors that they've currently been doing for the past 24 years. And I would say that's probably, like, I've only been in the industry, maybe like just over like 2 years. I would say that's the hardest thing to do, is to change someone's behaviors, because people have been doing what they've been doing for 20 odd years. And to try and change that is a challenge. It really is. And it just comes back to like, that is that person on board with the bigger picture and the long run game. And if they can be on board with that, then that's when they start seeing success. And it takes time, for sure. It takes time.
Yeah, this isn't something that we'll go too deep into, but I was just curious to think or to ask if you have anything that you've maybe implemented into your own lifestyle, your own training, your own habits, that has really helped you in terms of like some sort of strategies for changing habits. And it can be as simple as, I don't know, not eating as much chocolate or getting into the habit of walking. Is there anything that you can think of that you've done, or maybe you've done with clients that has been successful?
I think just making things so simple that you can't, I mean, I'm sure you've read Atomic Habits, right? It's just like, make it easy and make it obvious. If you have to think about something, we talk about nutrition, right? Like roughly we should know what we're going to eat in a day, right? They say if you wake up and you don't know what you're going to eat for breakfast, you're trying to change body composition, you're trying to reach some sort of goal, you're already behind. Because it's like, we need to be prepared. We need to make things easy. If you've got your breakfast prepared in the fridge, or you've got your gym clothes laid out, or it's something as simple as just drinking enough water, you've got a glass of water as soon as you wake up, it's there, it's obvious, done. And I think just we have to really just break it down to really small, digestible parts. Because I've been in a situation where I've gave the client too much, because I'm thinking, oh, that's easy to implement, but for that person, literally it was too much for them. Like I was thinking of like water, or you need to get some sunshine, and it's very easy as a coach just to fire all these things because we take it as for granted, right? But for the person that's not been exercising or not been doing things properly for the past 20 years, a challenge for them can just be drinking enough water, right? And just going back to your question, just making things really simple and easy.
Yeah, nice. Atomic Habits is an amazing book. And I actually did a podcast on that one. If you're listening to this and you haven't listened or read Atomic Habits, I definitely recommend that, because super simple framework of how you can make and break habits as well.
Yeah.
Liam, just going more into the training side of it then, because obviously anybody who looks at your social media, you do a lot of training yourself, you're looking in good shape, like I said at the start here. What's the difference between someone going in and training and doing exercise, and someone almost following a program or following some sort of methodology with their training?
Yeah. I think just having intention. I mean, people can follow programs. There's nothing wrong with following a program, but I think it's just understanding the why behind that program, right? It's like, especially where I'm working now, we're big on education. We've got some group programs, we do online training, but we give so much education to the individual so they understand why they're doing what they're doing, right? I say all the time, if you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, things can be boring, right? Like, I mean, if you're going in and you've not slept so good and you've got like 5 sets of back squats at a certain load, you can back squats again. But instead, if you understand at the beginning of the program, coach has told you, right, we're doing these squats for 12 weeks, we're running this progression. You now understand, right, okay, I'm on week 8, it's a bit hard, but I know in another 4 weeks, I'm going to be testing or whatever I'm going to be doing. It just goes back to understanding why you're doing what you're doing or what you're doing. So, yeah.
Yeah, nice. And kind of going back and forth a little bit here, but I've got questions for you all over the place.
Yeah,
just going back to, super interested with how you're, obviously it starts with that initial conversation and mapping out longer term, bigger goals, that type of stuff, or longer term goals. Are you breaking them up? Do you have a system of breaking them up into like shorter term goals? Because if you sat down with someone and their goal was to, you know, lose X amount of weight or get in shape for their wedding or whatever it is, that longer term goal, sometimes it can be a bit daunting. And as a coach, if you had to sit down and say, right, you're going to work with me for the next year and a half, or you're going to work with me for the next 2 years, here's what we're going to accomplish. Do you find that it's important to break it down into those smaller chunks, those smaller goals as you're going through?
Yeah, totally, 100%. I think just like you said, bigger goals can be daunting, right? And generally, when you're onboarding clients and they're looking for, there's got some like lowest hanging fruits, we call them, right? Like we go back to we use a reference. It's called the basic lifestyle guidelines. Are you drinking enough water? Are you sleeping? Are you getting sunshine? Are you sitting down chewing your food? All these sorts of things that people can just start chipping away at, and it gives us a roadmap. And they're just low hanging fruits, and I'm like 90% of people's goals or problems would be simply fixed if they just done the basics right. And those basics, it's literally drinking water, sitting down, chewing your food, having good relationships in your life, moving body, moving blood, getting sunshine, sleeping, right? Applying work, rest appropriately. These are all the basic things that we need to do. And I've seen it time and time again. If people implement these basic lifestyle guidelines, then everything else just falls into place. They don't even need to start worrying about weighing out the rice or counting their calories, because they've now developed a good relationship with food through education from the coach. They understand what food does to their body, and everything just falls into place. And we've not even talked about how many grams of chicken they're supposed to be eating, right? It's just getting on board with these basics plays massive dividend in the rest of their life.
Yeah, that's great. And one of the things that I wanted to ask you, and you touched on it a little bit when you answered the question earlier, but just your thoughts around that quick fix mindset. If you're having a conversation with someone, or maybe you don't even get to that stage, do you know if someone's not ready to make a change? Is it kind of obvious, glaringly obvious, when you're, you know, potentially going to work with someone?
I've seen a few clients that have came to me, and you tell them there's a 60-minute or a 90-minute initial consultation, and like, wait, what? You want to talk to me for 60 minutes before I'm just coming to do some burpees with you? And I'm like, no, that's not. The process is we're having a conversation. We'll then take you through a movement assessment, and then from there we've painted the picture, we've gathered the information, then we can start training. But like, that's already alarm bells are ringing if the person doesn't even want to sit down for 60 minutes and open up to you. Right, I think that's clear and obvious.
You obviously have your own ways of doing things in terms of you know, measurements and markers and things like that, and I'm sure it varies from client to client. But have you got any you know, regular assessments that you would do, whether subjective or objective, that you would do with clients?
So the whole process I take clients through is that 60 to 90-minute initial consultation. From there, we move into a movement assessment. So in that movement assessment, we're taking different metrics. We're taking body composition analysis, so that BCA machine, so in body we use. Then from there, they're going into like a basic movement assessment. We're just looking at people through 6 functional movement patterns. So you got the squat, you got the bend, you got the lunge, you got the core, you got the push, you got the pull. We take them through that. Then case dependent, depending who the person is in front of me, we put them through a work capacity test. Now that work capacity test is a 10-minute assault bike test. Now that is very case dependent, because going back to that initial consultation, if the person's rocking up and they've not been sleeping well and they're not drinking enough water, is it the best idea to get them on a bike and stress them out for 10 minutes? Probably not. but that's always in the back pocket, depending on who the individual is. If they've got great lifestyle habits, cool. Let's see how aerobically fit you are. Hop on the bike for 10 minutes. Why the bike? Because it's easy. Anyone can hop on a bike. It's not like a rower where there's a lot more technique and stuff involved, right? Then from there, once we've gathered all this information, I've sat down with this person for 60 to 90 minutes. I now can see generally how they move, where they're at aerobically. I then go and paint the picture, and that's when program design starts. Because you've gathered all the information, right? But without all that information, in my opinion, we're just guessing, right? And like, you need to assess people, because no matter how long you've been in the game or coaching, I still think that without taking someone through a movement assessment, you're just guessing, right?
Yeah, and do you have particular markers when you would reassess, or that would be case to case again?
So that case to case, if the person, the beginner, well, it depends. If the person's coming to with a goal of they want to body recomp, then that in body's probably going to get brought out a lot more to the person that's got performance related goals, because yeah, they matter, but they're not as that body composition client. We can be rechecking in 4 weeks, 6 weeks, but for the more advanced individual or someone that's more into performance, that can be every 2 months, right? It just very case dependent, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, nice, man. Mate, this has been great conversation. It's so good to get your kind of input on the way that you do things, the way that you manage your clients and your training. What's the plans for the future, mate? Put you on the spot a little bit. Have you got aspirations that you're working towards?
Not really, mate. I want to keep, I've been coaching, 2 years. I just want to keep developing as a person. I want to keep developing as a coach. I want to have just unbelievable relationships in my life, between my wife, between my friends, just cultivate deep relationships with people and just keep on learning. Like I've got maybe 5 years we leave Hong Kong, maybe 5 years we're still here. I've got no idea, but as long as I'm still learning, I'm happy.
Yeah, like I said at the start, I think your journey is been very unique. The way that you got into it, took a little bit of time, and you seem so willing to learn and keep learning, which I think is so important in any industry. Like you should always be willing to learn. And obviously over in Hong Kong, you're in the right environment there in the gym that you're in.
Yeah, man, it's been awesome. Been really good. Enjoying it.
Liam, it's been great chatting to you. Where can people find you, follow your content?
So Instagram would be probably number one. So that's at Liam Carmichael 90. If you want to find out a bit more about what we do online in terms of programming, we do the process programming. That'd be on Instagram. And then if you just like to check out the gym where I work, which is fucking awesome, sorry for swearing, that would be at Coastal Fitness HK.
Yeah, brilliant. I'll tag you in the show notes so people can go and find you.
Legend.
But I'm looking forward to getting you back on in the future, maybe when you're even deeper into
man,
your
pleasure.
journey. Yeah. All right. Thanks very much, mate.
And how are you? How are you, mate? I've not even asked how are you.
I'm great, thank you. Yeah, I'm really well.